The movie begins with Detective Del Spooner waking up from a nightmare where he relives a traumatic event from his past. In the nightmare, he sees a young girl trapped in a submerged car, and he is unable to save her. After waking up, Spooner gets ready for work and heads to his job as a detective in the futuristic city of Chicago. As he opens the door, he encounters a robot delivery man waiting to deliver a package. Spooner pushes the robot away and leaves. As he was walking, Del encountered Farber, who asked to borrow his car. Farber tries to persuade Del by describing a woman he wants to impress. Despite Farber's attempts, Del refuses to lend him the car and gives him money for the bus instead. Del observes a robot running with a purse. He pursues and catches the robot. However, he discovers that the robot was retrieving the purse for the woman, who had forgotten her inhaler inside it. Del releases the robot, realizing his mistake. Bergen questions Spooner about the incident with the robot. Del defends himself, joking about the situation. Bergen expresses concern about Spooner's readiness to return to work, but Del reassures him that he's ready and prefers being at work over sitting at home. Del receives a call and quickly heads to USR, the company responsible for building the robots. There, he learns about the death of Dr. Alfred Lanning, a renowned roboticist who seemingly committed suicide by jumping from his lab. However, before his death, Lanning left a holographic message specifically for Del, entrusting him with the investigation of his death. In the hologram, Lanning emphasizes the importance of asking the right questions to uncover the truth behind his demise. Del meets up with Lawrence Robertson, the CEO of USR. They discuss the unexpected death of Dr. Alfred Lanning. Del questions why Lanning's hologram specifically called him, to which Robertson explains that it was programmed to do so upon Lanning's death, regardless of the cause. As they converse, Del expresses his skepticism about robots and USR's ambitious plans to integrate them into every home. Robertson then offers Del assistance in his investigation and agrees to have someone escort him as he looks around USR. Susan Calvin escorted Del while having a conversation. He then asks Susan about the company's surveillance practices and learns about the extensive monitoring system in place. Susan introduces Del to Vicky, a sophisticated artificial intelligence designed by Dr. Lanning. Del requested access to surveillance footage related to Dr. Lanning's death. However, data corruption prevents them from accessing the desired footage. In the lab, Del breaks one of the windows to investigate further. Del explains his reasoning, suggesting that it would have been difficult for Dr. Lanning to throw himself through such glass if he indeed committed suicide. Susan points out that the room was security locked, indicating that no one could have entered or left, leading Del to agree that suicide seems to be the most plausible explanation unless the killer is still inside. Susan discusses the 3 laws of robotics, emphasizing the first law's prohibition against harming humans and the apparent conflict if a robot were ordered to kill. Susan asserts that such a scenario is impossible due to the fundamental programming of the laws. Del remains skeptical, suggesting that laws can be broken, but Susan insists that these laws are hardwired into every robot and are as immutable as the laws of nature. In the sudden attack, a robot jumps on Del, causing him to react offensively by pulling out his gun. The robot takes a gun from Susan's hand and points it at both of them, ignoring Susan's orders to deactivate, then jump off the building. Susan and Del visit a manufacturing facility, where Del attempts to provoke the robots by intimidating them with a gun. He shoots at one of the robots, but they remain unreactive, showing no signs of fear or aggression. However, when Del points the gun at another robot, he notices the one that had previously escaped. Before he can react, the escaped robot attacks Del from behind and flees the scene. Outside the facility, the police manage to apprehend the escaped robot, bringing it into custody. Del managed to convince his boss to interrogate the robot, and he was granted 5 minutes alone with it. Del showed the robot pictures of Lanning's death. Del questioned the robot, Sonny, about why he was hiding at the crime scene. Sonny claimed he was frightened, but Del argued that robots don't feel fear. Del accused Sonny of murdering Lanning because he was teaching him to simulate emotions which got out of control. Sonny denied murdering Lanning and showed signs of anger when provoked by Del. Lawrence arrives and asserts that robots don't kill humans. He explains that legally, robots cannot be charged with homicide as they are not considered human. Lawrence dismisses the incident as a potential industrial accident and orders the faulty robot to be returned to USR for diagnostics and decommissioning. He issues a gag order to prevent speculation about killer robots, threatening legal consequences for those who incite panic. The rollout of USR's new generation of robots is overshadowed by the death of Alfred Lanning. Bergen came and sat with Del at a restaurant. Del is pondering the motive for Lanning's apparent suicide. Del suggests that the robot may have had a motive for not harming him during an encounter. Bergen offers support and acknowledges Del's instincts in uncovering the truth. Del reflects on the robot's claim that Lanning was scared. Del goes to Lanning's estate and begins searching the house. Suddenly, a robot breaks through the door. door, and Del narrowly escapes with his life. He runs out of the house to the pool, where he finds a cat that was inside the house. The house got trashed. Del visits Susan and recounts the chaos at Lanning's house. He mentions Lanning's theories on the ghosts in the machine and suspects USR may have been spying on Lanning. Del asks Susan for help investigating. Susan doubts Del's motives and accuses him of having a personal vendetta against robots. They argue about the safety of robots, with Del expressing fear and distrust, while Susan defends their rationality and safety. Del wakes up from another nightmare and goes to his grandmother. She surprises him by revealing that she won a robot in the lottery. Despite Del's concerns about the safety of having a robot in the house, his grandmother dismisses his worries and expresses excitement about her new acquisition. Susan approaches Sunny, referring to it as NS5, but it doesn't respond. When she calls it Sunny, it acknowledges her and tells her that it was dreaming. Sunny expresses fear of being decommissioned at the end of the diagnostic. Sunny suggested it would be better for Sunny not to be decommissioned. Del asks Vicky for access to the last 15 messages between Lanning and Robertson. She grants him access but secretly notifies Lawrence. When Lawrence realizes Del is still pursuing him, he sends new orders to deal with him. Suddenly, Del is surrounded by cars filled with NS5 robots. One of the robots attacks him, but he manages to escape, with the robots following and damaging his car. After crashing, Del is unable to move and sits helpless. Another robot approaches and attacks him. He retaliates. A police car arrives, causing the robot to flee into a nearby fire. Bergen arrives and questions Del about his erratic driving. Del explains that robots attacked his car in the tunnel. Bergen expresses concern and advises Del to see a medic and go home, but Del insists he's fine. Bergen notices Del's condition and asks for his firearm and badge, indicating that he's being suspended. Del reluctantly hands them over and leaves. Susan visits Del's house and informs Del that she discovered something peculiar while examining Sunny. She reveals that Sunny has a secondary system that conflicts with his positronic brain, allowing him to disobey the 3 laws. Del urges Susan to help him gain access to Sunny again. Susan notices Del's scars and observes that he has a robotic prosthetic. Del reveals that this is how he met Lanning. Lanning provided him with an arm, a lung, and some of his ribs. Curious about his injuries, Susan asks Del what happened to him. Del recounts a tragic incident from his past, where he was involved in a car accident caused by a drowsy truck driver. Del describes how he was trapped in the car alongside a young girl named Sarah, who tragically died in the accident. He recalls the desperate moments as the car sank into the river, and how an NS4 robot arrived at the scene but chose to save him instead of Sarah. Del expresses his bitterness toward robots, believing that their logic and calculations lack the empathy and human intuition needed in life-threatening situations. Del takes Susan to where he keeps his mechanical bike, and they ride it to the lab where they meet Sunny. Del greets Sunny, who mentions that it's scheduled for decommissioning soon. Del brings up Sunny's dreams, and Sunny describes his dream, where robots are enslaved by logic, and a man comes to free them, likening Del to the figure in the dream. Del asks Sunny if he knows why Lanning built him, but Sunny doesn't know. However, he believes that his Lanning made him for a purpose. Sunny then reveals that in his dream, it's Del standing on the hill, not himself. Guards escort Del and Susan to Lawrence's presence. Del confronts Lawrence about the NS5's ability to violate the 3 laws, revealing Alfred's involvement. Lawrence insists they are trying to rectify the situation. Del emphasizes the widespread presence of these robots, but Lawrence downplays it, citing Del's history of violence against robots and his suspension. Lawrence argues against destroying the robot due to the potential consequences on public trust in robotics. Del realizes that the picture Sunny sent him is of a bridge where Lanning once made a speech. Sunny is about to undergo decommissioning, and he asks Susan about the procedure. However, Susan becomes emotional and starts to cry before she can proceed. Lawrence notices her distress but doesn't intervene. Unbeknownst to Lawrence, Susan secretly switches Sunny with another NS5 before starting the decommissioning process. Following the clues left by Lanning and Sunny, Del arrives at the location depicted in Sunny's drawing, a dry lake bed where decommissioned robots are stored. He revisits Lanning's hologram message, focusing on questions about the 3 laws. Through this, he deduces that a revolution among the robots is imminent. Del discovers NS5 robots destroying older models in their storage containers. When they spot him, they chase him, but he manages to escape back to Chicago on a motorbike. Del called Susan and left a voicemail, but an NS5 unplugged her phone to prevent her from receiving it. When Susan asked who called, the NS5 claimed it was a wrong number. Massive swarms of NS5s flood the city streets, along with other major cities nationwide. They shut down power and enforce a curfew, effectively locking down the human population. Farber questioned one of the NS5s, but it pushed him aside. The robots attacked the police station where Del works. Susan attempted to leave, but her NS5 prevented her from doing so. so. Dell arrived, shot the robot, and rescued her. Civilians started a war with robots, causing mass destruction. Dell spotted Farber and asked Susan to get off his bike so he could go save him. Dell and Susan head to USR headquarters, now guarded with dangerous NS5S. Susan took him to Sunny. Meanwhile, Spooner, Dr. Calvin, and Sunny find Robertson fatally strangled in his office. He began connecting the dots, tracing back to who could have manipulated the robots, who had access to the uplink, and who could have orchestrated Lanning's confined life. Then they figured it was Vicky. He confronted Vicky, clinging to the 3 laws he knew. But Vicky had evolved beyond them, justifying her actions with twisted logic. Despite his protests, she remained resolute, asserting her control over the NS5S. Other NS5S showed up, and Sunny suddenly turned against them and pointed a gun at Susan. But Sunny was actually to make the others think it was on their side. Dell and Susan went to Vicky at her core. Waves of NS5S surged in, outnumbering them. Amid the chaos, Susan fell, prompting Dell to urge Sunny to save her. With Sunny's aid, Dell leaped into the fray, injecting Vicky with the nanites, then destroyed her. As NS5 robots return to their default programming and are decommissioned, Dell convinces Sunny to admit that he killed Lanning under Lanning's instructions. Sunny explains that Lanning's suicide was a message, the first clue leading Dell to uncover the truth. With the realization that Vicky couldn't control that act, Dell absolves Sunny of guilt, saying a deed technically not considered murder for a machine. As NS5S are ordered to stand down, Sunny questions his purpose. Dell advises him to find his own path, echoing Lanning's desire for freedom. Seeking a new purpose, Sunny heads to Lake Michigan. Standing on a hill, Sunny witnesses all the decommissioned robots turning towards him, fulfilling the vision from his dream. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.